Welcome to my Mythical Meta. My name is Travis, and I'm joined this week by Randy and Benjamin.
Hello.
How's it going?
All right. Derek is out today. He told us he was having a big family dinner. I'm fairly certain he's playing Dragon Age Veilguard.
Probably.
Which is what I wish I were doing, but I spent way too much money at a convention this weekend, and I think it would be really bad form for me to also buy a brand new video game.
Yeah. We were at this convention, and we were, it was mostly miniatures, which our gaming group's not a big miniature table, and we're like, okay, all right, we're actually going to make some money this week. And then right next to us, a guy with a bunch of Kickstarter board games and expansions and all this, and we're like, all right.
It was the worst booth that could have posted up next to us,
right?
Because I wanted everything at his table.
Everything.
Oh,
literally.
okay. I was like, was he selling his own dice and just like
No.
It was stuff that I wanted.
You wanted, okay.
And multiple times Benjamin, and he only took cash. So multiple times Benjamin and I were like, "Sorry, I got to take something out of the cash box for this."
you take a sale and then immediately hand the cash over to your neighbor.
Yeah. And then on the very last day of the con, there was a flea market in a different room where people could bring their old games, their old books, their old figures or whatever.
That's cool.
And just try to, pawn them off. And Randy, I found a huge bin of Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Oh, nice.
A huge bin. Including, and some of them were still shrink-wrapped, like, new in box. So I definitely spent some money on that one. I told Kristen, hey, my Christmas present is taken care of, and you got a great deal.
Wow, I bet she was so appreciative.
When I showed her everything, she was like, okay, looks good. Glad to have it taken care of. So I told her, you don't have to get me anything. She said, I'll probably still get you new boxers.
Aw, that's love.
That's my stocking stuffer every year, which I love.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is some fresh new underwear. All right.
You'll need to show us what you got, though.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. Okay, we have got a shout-out this week to our number one patron, David.
David!
Woo! David, thank you so much for sticking with us, and we're so glad to have you as our number one longest-running patron. You have got some great perks available to you and all of our patrons. Benjamin, start us off. What's the number one perk?
The number one perk is a special patron code for 20% off at EldoradoGaming.com, where you can find all of our products, dice, accessories, playmats, boxes, and if you're a patron, you get 20% off.
Hell yeah, brother. Randy, what's our other perk?
As always, early and ad-free content. You will never have to worry about seeing those annoying, unskippable 30-second ads about things you don't want.
I realized the other day that when I watch YouTube on my television, like through my TV app, I can't skip for like a full minute. Yeah. And on my phone, it's like unskippable for only like 15 seconds or whatever.
Huh. Because they're like, what are you going to do? Install an ad blocker on your TV? No.
Yeah,
right. They know what you're doing.
So annoying. And your last major perk is access to the My Mythical Meta Discord server. This is where we chat. This is where we hang out, where we update each other on the games we're playing, where we talk about our magic decks, our upcoming challenges. We've got Secret Santa decks. We've got deck building challenges. Those are going to be coming up soon in the pod. And if you are in our Discord, you can be there for that. You can talk with us and play games with us. Thank you guys so much. And if you want to be a patron, you can find us at patreon.com/mymythicalmeta. We've got a fun episode for you tonight. We are going to have a debate. Bwah, bwah, bwah. Bwah, bwah, bwah. we are going to have a debate. We've got two sides of something very common in role-playing games, in lots of games we play. It's how to handle combat. How do you handle fighting uh, in your role-playing games? How do you handle the environment or combat? There are two main schools of thought and ways that games handle this. The first is grids and measurements. People have been using grids and measurements and pieces for thousands of years to conceptualize combat. Chess. We've talked about chess a lot on the show. Chess is a way to conceptualize a fight. There's a king. Next to him is the queen. They have powers. On their flanks are other pieces that have different abilities. And in front of them are the pawns. This is a battle simulation that people are going through when they play. And ancient generals have been doing this for thousands of years. They've got their war tables with their pieces, and they're moving them around with their big sticks or whatever. So, grid combat is very common, and in the modern day, it's represented by war games using dice, rulers, templates, and of course, miniatures. That's something that is a ton of fun. The highly detailed miniatures, painting miniatures is one of my main hobbies right now. I get a ton of joy out of that. And using them with the rule sets that they come with, this is all just a really fancy way to conceptualize combat. The other, it's a little out of the box. It's called the theater of the mind. Benjamin, tell us a little bit about what the theater of the mind is and how it works.
So theater of the mind tries to keep you immersed in the story during combat. So instead of saying we're going to stop what we're doing and pull out the grid and everybody puts their miniatures, you just kind of describe the setting, you describe where people are, people describe what they're going to do, and the combat is part of the story. So you don't worry so much about exact distances. You continue to role play while you fight.
Yeah, precisely. That's theater of the mind. The first time I was introduced to the phrase theater of the mind, Mage the Ascension.
Yes.
The World of Darkness has developed their entire rule set by trying to evoke this ethos that the story, what your characters are going through and the way your characters feel, it is ever present. It's always part of the story, rather than kind of switching modes to, in a lot of cases, play a different game. And this is something that I feel like I've noticed in Dungeons and Dragons for a long time, that skills are separate from combat. You've got your out of combat abilities and how they work, and then you have your in combat abilities and how they work. And it is almost like playing two different games. So what we're going to talk about today is a debate on what we think is better. We have two main positions. We've got three people here today. We will see how this works. I hope you guys don't team up on me, because that's kind of what I think is going to happen.
I can see both sides, so I'll probably be on both sides.
Yeah. So here's what I think we should do. I think we should start with one side and like a reason, and then give the other side, the opportunity to try to debunk or poke holes or cross-examine or whatever.
And if y'all at home want to respond or rebut something that we say, stick it down in the comments. Tell us what you prefer.
Yes. And please stick it in the comments. I am highly responsive to YouTube comments. I respond to just about everyone. Let's sound off in the comments what you think is the best way to run a combat encounter in a role-playing game. So here's my first thing. The table is already cluttered. There's books, there's character sheets, there's pencil, there's dice, there's snacks. And then we have to add in, just temporarily, yet another thing onto the table. A grid and the pieces for whatever combat is about to run. And maybe Randy's like, I gotta grab this Mountain Dew bottle to be this thing. I gotta grab this. I gotta grab this nail clipper to be this thing, and it becomes. There's a joke at the shop called where we call it playing Poor Hammer instead of Warhammer. I gotta grab this miniature holder and stick it here in order to be something. I often see like paper towel tubes and whatever, so or a can of Coke or something. The table is already so cluttered, and now we have to shove even more things out of the way in order to fill the table up with even more stuff. And then during combat, people have to stand up, reach over, potentially knock stuff over in order to move their piece around, in order to make sure their piece has line of sight to another piece. And it's just like, just tell me that you want to move to get into line of sight of somebody and make the shot. Like, I don't know. That's my thing. It clutters my experience. I like my like station to be as clean as possible, which is usually an open book, my character sheet flat on one page, and then the 3 dice I need next to it. And like that's it. But if I'm snacking, then my area is going to be even more cluttered with snacks. So, point number 1 for Theater of the Mind is no need for extra materials. All right. Y'all go.
Okay,
All right.
counterpoint.
I gotta go for it, Richard.
Yeah, no, Randy, you go.
My first thought was get a TV tray.
Yes.
And put it beside you. Put your snacks there. Why are you putting drinks and things that you can get Cheeto dust all over your books?
6
Gross.
people all with a TV tray next to them?
When do you
But
have
it's
TV
not
tray
that hard.
in between people?
Yes.
Now how am I going to get up and go to the bathroom, or how am I going to get up and get more snacks, Randy? Whenever we play at Derek and Kristen's house, it is a smorgasbord.
You just go backwards and then you stand up. Like I don't have to go to the side and you just sweep everything off to the ground. You know.
Yeah.
There's that. There's also don't be a cluttered mess. Get a laptop. Your character sheet, the book. You don't need a pen and pencil if you can just type everything up. You can do your dice on a roll 20.
We know that laptops are a distraction.
Control F for the
turn off the
rulebook.
Wi-Fi.
That's true. Put it in airplane mode. But
Dang.
But no, the TV tray is a big
Rebut
one. I
this.
literally have a TV tray sitting next to my game table, so that the game table is for the game. You don't put a drink next to your game pieces. That's no, right? Stick it on the TV tray.
Okay. I'm not convinced yet.
Okay.
Second thing I wanted to say, if it's okay, Benjamin.
Yeah.
I think it's okay for not everyone having to reach and do all their movement themselves. Like, designate either the DM or designate one of the players to be your person with the stick to make the moves,
Okay.
and so the player can say, I want to move my character, into line of sight and then take my shot. And then he, just have one person that maybe is dedicated to that job.
Okay, I like it. A PLC
You know,
technique.
Yeah, and
Assigning
someone else,
a job.
Someone else. Sometimes you designate someone to take notes.
Yeah.
Designate someone to handle combat, maybe for this, for that either the session that
Encounter.
not that round of combat, but that encounter. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, it's your turn for this encounter, and then you just go around the table. That way, everyone can get the chance to be general.
Yeah. And I do want to push back on the now you clear everything out for it. No, you keep the grid out with people's characters out. Everyone should
All the time.
Instead of saying, "Oh, I need to find a thing to be a thing." No, everyone should already know what their character is going to be and have it out with their character sheet and everything else. And that can help during non-combat, right? So if you're like, okay, the grid and everything is for combat, but if y'all are, this is especially helpful for the GM, if y'all are planning an encounter to surprise someone, having them say, okay, here's the fire that y'all are all camped around. Where are y'all sitting? So now we know who gets hurt by the charging animal, and they don't necessarily have to suspect that first, right? You're like, who's pointed north? Okay. Right. Or who sees the horse
What's your
riding
path
in?
of perception?
Right.
See, I feel like that gives the players more information.
But that's
Right?
exactly.
Why does it matter where I'm camped?
But in real life, they
Can
would know. They would just be able to see the ambient environment, right? So, like if you were LARPing,
Sure,
or if
but
this was,
couldn't the DM just say the wolf comes out and snatches Travis?
they could. But then, who's closest to the wolf to shoot an arrow?
The DM can put the wolf wherever they want. It doesn't matter.
You're right, but I think it's fun to be like, and here comes the wolf. Rah!
Okay, so
Little
you
wolf
like the
miniature.
toys.
Yes. Yeah. Here.
Okay.
Hey, nothing wrong with
You can just say
enjoying the
that.
minis.
You can just say it.
Look at all those toys.
Benjamin, I've got. Trust me, I get it. Here it is. Hold on.
Yeah, you can see mine. I got my Tarask, my Red Dragon, all these miniatures over here.
I've got my Marvel Crisis Protocol toys here, ready to paint. Some painted. Like, trust me, I get it. But that's because I'm playing the game.
Right. Exactly. So see that Tarask behind Randy. When would he get to use that Tarask? Basically, the only excuse to have D&D miniatures is if you're going to use them when you play D&D. So extra materials, they're fun.
Okay. All right, sound off in the comments. Who do you think wins round 1? Okay, round 2, Randy or Benjamin, y'all go. Why do you think that grids or props are better than Theater of the Mind?
You want to go ahead, Benjamin?
Sure. So I'm going to do this one. If we're being honest, some people do not have a good imagination. I think this can be the DM or the player. If the DM is bad at describing things, or the player's bad at painting a mental picture using someone else's words, then they're gonna have a hard time functioning in a theater of the mind setting. They're gonna, the wolf comes out and gets them, and they're like, "Why didn't I see the wolf? Like, I didn't realize the forest was this thick. And then they get bogged down on trying to imagine what just happened while the table moves on without them, or whatever, or everyone's confused. Just the grids and props and different things like that help the people with a poor imagination stay involved in the game and know what's going on. And I think that's especially true during combat, where not knowing how everyone else is around makes it hard for me to decide who I'm going to target. An example of this would be in our Martian colony game.
Yeah.
I was describing, well, it was half a kilometer to your east. And okay, well, they turned and shot at somebody, and they're like, okay, now where was that cloud thing? And I was like, now it's half a kilometer to your left. Okay, trying, and I found it to be very difficult to make sure that everyone knew where all the different mobile suits were. So, I think.
Yeah, I see that. I've been the teacher where students tell me that reading a paragraph didn't work for them. That they don't see or have a hard time picturing what was being described.
I would say that there's a small portion of the population that has, I think it's aphantasia. Yeah. Like they have no mind's eye. They cannot visualize what they read. And when I first learned of that, I was like, that's wild. Like, not being able to think of it, even just a basic, like an apple. Like, they can't just see an apple as a 3D object in their own head. Like, they just think of the word apple. And it's like, but you can't take it, rotate it, look at it. So it's like, yeah, they can't do that. There's no way they can imagine I'm here and then I have 6 people around me. Mm-hmm. That's way over there. It's like they need the visual assistance.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
Well, Travis, I'm gonna help you because you didn't give any pushback. For people without aphantasia, the only way that they're going to be able to develop their mind's eye and get better is by doing it. And I was just on our D&D where somebody talked about how one of their players started off being really bad at D&D, and with it, after like 5 sessions, they were just really into it and doing all these things, and the what made them better at it was that they had to keep doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't use a theater of the mind approach, then they will all, they're not going to get better. So
Yes, I certainly agree with you that perfect practice makes perfect. You have to try. But as you were talking, I remember often what I will do when people do get confused at a description, and I'm trying to stay in theater of the mind, is rather than a full grid with full miniatures with full props or whatever, sometimes I can just flip to a blank page in my journal and do very basic sketches, and put X's in certain locations. That way I can give them a snapshot of what that looks like, of where everything is. Maybe like periodically update it if somebody asks for a new snapshot.
yeah,
Because what I want is for, like we mentioned, I want to stay in the story. I want to stay what matters to your character. Like, maybe your character doesn't have completely perfect awareness of the entire battlefield. Maybe the only thing your character noticed was the direction from which the arrow struck you. Like, that's the person that I'd certainly be most worried about. And maybe you're like, sometimes I feel like having completely full battlefield awareness is not accurate to what it would really be like to roleplay in that situation. And having the time to completely scour the battlefield for every perfect option, and for every optimal move. I feel like theater of the mind helps me to not get bogged down in a bunch of details that don't impact my specific character. So I can certainly see why people want complete perfect battlefield awareness so that they can make the optimal move. But that's something that I feel takes me out of storytelling almost.
Yeah.
What does my actual character notice? Not completely perfect battlefield awareness of the player.
I think part of that, though, is on the DM, GM to kind of tell you, let's say, you do have everything laid out in front of you. And when it's your turn, it's partially on you as a player to, if you really want to like be in it, realize that it's like, well, you don't know about this because your character doesn't know about it. So like,
Right.
Don't act like you somehow know about something that you're not supposed to. But also, if you try to metagame, then it's the DM is there to kind of say like, why would you do that? You don't know that's going on, so your character would not leave here to go there if you have something in front of you attacking. Or it's like you don't see that enemy, so like you see this cone, not over here.
Yeah.
So that's
there's ways to do that with the grid. Things like the quote unquote fog of war, which is just like your character doesn't see things that are happening too far away, or this area is shrouded in magical darkness, so you don't know that miniature is there, or
right.
whatever. But yeah,
you failed your perception check.
Yeah. But then you don't have to do that with theater of the mind, right? The theater of the mind gives the GM control to say exactly what you do and do not see. So when it gets to a character's turn, it's like, okay, it's your turn in the initiative order. Okay, what do I see? Well, all you see is that there are 2 goblins right in front of you with sticks. And then they don't have the option of going, okay, and that character. Now, if they were listening, then they know it because they know what they just heard the other person. But they're no longer being told that information when it's their turn. And if they don't remember it, then it's not the time to ask anymore. It's like, no, now the DM is your memory.
Yeah, and I guess I'll use this to kind of shift into my next point. So I guess we can call that round 2. And for the next point, though, whenever I switch to combat, I feel like I'm switching to a different game. I feel like the entire game has changed. I feel like role playing stops, and now I'm moving into a tactical war game where my goal is to win. My goal is to score every wound on my opponent, to reduce their HP to 0, so that I come out the victor, I tally a win, and move to the next round of the tournament. Like, that's kind of what switching to combat can often feel like in games like this, where there's an out of combat role playing system and then an in combat role playing system. In role playing, I feel like it's okay if my character makes mistakes or fails, because that makes interesting stories. It can be fun when your character goofs on something. But in the combat game, and it's like what I said about perfect battlefield awareness, is that in a tactical war game, I can see everything on the battlefield, but my character might not. If my teammates, if Randy and Derek are playing with the, hyper competitive, we have perfect battlefield awareness, we know where our 3 opponents are, and we need to reduce their HP to 0. I worry sometimes that I might make them mad if I don't make the optimal move. Like, if I'm like, this happened in our Martian Colony game, where instead of just trying to reduce my opponent's HP to 0, I tried to disable them and show them a picture of my son and ask if they know anything about him.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But in a tactical war game, that's not the right move. We need to be reducing their HP to 0 to win, right? To win the game.
I think a problem might be the mindset, because I wanted you to do that, right? That's why in between turns, I'd be like, and you see this thing happening over there, and describing the descent as you blasted out of the mountain, like, okay, these people see you and they react, and then you see this, and then and then kind of like, oh, there's a frozen mech, but then they pull out a gun and shoot you. Like, I mean, it was switching from role playing to combat, but the truth was that y'all had roles happening constantly, and then the roles continued. The objective changed because you want to survive.
Yeah.
But like, it made sense what you were doing. Like, they didn't get mad at you for not killing the guy.
No,
right?
They didn't. No, they didn't. But I feel like in most games, and I also think we have a really great role-playing group.
True.
Fair.
I want to give our group props for that we all know the other character's personal motives for stuff, and that we want to keep those at the forefront of our game. But I feel like in most games, and let's be honest about Dungeons and Dragons, if you're doing a dungeon crawl, okay, nobody wants me to, like, no, I have to leave the giant spider alive so I can harvest its venom. Like, nobody wants that.
Okay? Nobody wants that in real life either. Squish the dang spider.
I feel like those are. I don't want to interrupt, by the way.
No, you're good.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I feel like I definitely get what you're saying about, like, it feels sometimes like you're changing from one game type to another. I guess for me, it doesn't do that, because I understand D&D, Mage, Martian Colony, these are role-playing games, and the combat mechanic, system that they have is just there to help facilitate a complex, like, split-second kind of situation.
Right.
In most of those times, I do not care about playing optimal. Like, my last character in Mage died.
Right. And no one
I
got
did
mad
play
at you
optimal. No, and I feel like I was even given the chance to, kind of like, I'm blanking on the phrase or the word or whatever, but like, we'll just waive this, and you're fine if you want. If you don't want to die, we don't have to have you die. But I was like, I made, mistakes were made, and character deaths happen. Now, so like I'm suboptimal gameplay can be some of the most fun. Mistakes are fun. Tripping can be funny.
Yeah,
You know,
and we've
I
done
think
that as
those
a news from the
leads.
Warfront too.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think those
suboptimal
leads
gameplay adds nuance and
character.
interesting situations. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if we're playing 40K, there's no RP in 40K. It is a tactical, yeah, that is when
That's
if you
literally
were
the
like,
point.
I want to play
Yeah.
something suboptimal in this game, it's like, and I was like a teammate, which I don't know if you have like 2v2 or not. If you
I think
could,
there are some game modes that can do 2v2, but anyway.
yeah. But if you're playing it as a team in a very tactical game like that, and you're being suboptimal for funsies, and it's like we're here, like this is the game.
Right.
Be precise and win.
Yeah.
Then I kind of get the like, why are you not being optimal?
Yeah.
And then
I bring it up because I see YouTube videos and tons of threads on Reddit where people are saying, "What's the optimal pick
Yeah.
to increase my damage per second? Like, my DPS or increase my survivability. How, Benjamin, you do this in character creation. How do I min max?
Yeah.
How can I make my character an absolute scalpel and do the one job I need them to do to the absolute limit?"
Yeah.
And when I'm role playing, I often don't feel that way, and I would worry. I would have just a little bit of anxiety, not too much. And again, not with you guys, but if I were playing with some strangers, they might look at me funny if I called my character the sharpshooter. Just say for example, we're
Right.
doing like a Western something. I'm just trying to think of something.
We got you.
And I'm a gunslinger, sharpshooter, whatever, and I intentionally shoot a hole in his hat above his head instead of blowing his head off.
that's style.
Yeah.
Well,
Because you're still a sharpshooter. You hit your target. It wasn't lethal.
Well,
I just worry about the players who are like,
Yeah.
why did you
do that?
Why would you do that? Like,
so
I
I mean, that can happen regardless of if there's a grid, though, right?
You're right, and that kind of switches. That was a bit of a tangent from Theater of the Mind versus Grid, but like grids create in me this feeling that it's a tactical war game with the goal is to win, and I feel like it leaves less room for role playing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I think that the response would be that if you're going to run a grid combat system effectively, you would want to do a lot of your role playing as well with the grid. So like you're entering a dungeon, there's a trap here. Move your character to where the trap is to disarm it, or go around the trap if or you walk in, now detect a trap. Okay. Oh, well, here's your bartender. Walk over to the bar. And then the role play. Now, at that point, it's playing with action figures rather than.
I was about to say at that point it's playing, playing with your army men and
Right.
jumping
You're
them around your Lego canyon,
playing The Sims,
which is
what you're
also
doing.
fun. Let's
Yes.
be real.
It's fun. I do think that does take it out. It's no longer you. You're saying this character does it rather than I do it. But it is a way to make it so that you can go seamlessly from role play to combat and back again. If we're talking about it
That
being
was
a different
Tolkien's
game,
rejected title for The Hobbit.
what,
To
there and
combat and back again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I see your point. Like you want to succeed at role playing in a different way than you want to succeed at combat, and miniatures feels more like you can't min max with Theater of the Mind. The DM can stop you from doing it by saying this is what you see, whereas if you have the capacity to take in the whole board, you can min max even if the DM's telling you not to. You just be like, you don't know what I'm thinking. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna, you don't want me to see the rogue sneaking up behind me because you made a secret roll. But if you move the rogue up behind me, I know. Now I'm gonna. Right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
and the DM may not let you do a sword backwards, but they can't stop you from saying, "Well, I'm gonna swing my flail around like this to try to hit the enemy in front of me."
That's perfect.
Yeah. So
I think that could, even though that is metagaming, that still would be a funny story moment of just
Yeah.
like, I just swung it around and just knocked some dude's head off. Still metagaming.
yes,
Shame.
yeah, you shouldn't do that. But
Just
that's the thing with Theater of the Mind. The DM can make a secret roll and see that that the rogue passed their sneak attack and just move without the character knowing. The character won't get to decide what their attack is based on seeing a miniature move towards them. Whereas with grid and props, it's hard to ignore, right?
Yeah.
So
You just don't put the miniature on the board until it's seen by that character. I guess pretty much.
Yeah.
but what if the other characters can see it for whatever reason?
I mean, you could tell them in private, like either a text, take a note.
A whisper message in Discord or
Yeah,
Yeah.
you use private message them and say like, everyone rolls perception.
But Randy, my laptop doesn't have internet access at the table because you told me to shut it off.
Pen and paper, just sticky notes.
You told me to use a laptop. I don't have my notebook.
I'm the DM. I'm prepared. I have sticky notes. I have everything I could ever need. Be
But
prepared.
doesn't that make your board so cluttered?
That's why I own the table. I get most of the table, and that's why I have TV trays.
Your TV
That's
tray.
right. You pull
for
out your captain's cache, which has room for your sticky notes and your pins and your dice and your dice tray, all in one nice little box.
You're gonna make me put that sponsored banner going across the top of the
That's right.
going
at
across
Captain's
the top
Cache,
of the video.
which you can
The
pick up
Captain's
at
Cache
Eldorado
available now at EldoradoGaming.com.
which you can get 20% off for if you subscribe to our Patreon.
Okay.
Hey, that's a good deal. That's like $10 off.
Yeah, it is a good deal. Okay, so round 3 is that it feels like a different game. So sound off in the comments. Round 3, which point do you think is better there? Okay, you guys, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to do this one. So we just talked about, we came from a convention. The convention was with the Lone Star Historical Miniature Society, and
Millennium Con
in Millennium
Temple,
Con,
Texas.
It was a lot of fun, a lot of cool people there. But what is it? It's a historical miniature gaming group because miniatures are awesome, and the people love taking their rulers and their sticks with different colors on them and all that stuff, and seeing what the line of sight was and marching their miniatures around the building and all of that and seeing if they could see things. Some people
Rolling
really
their
like
tanks,
the
flying
minutia.
their helicopters.
Yeah, some people really like the minutia of coordinating that sort of tactical game. That's why Warhammer
Listeners,
exists.
check out the game Circus Maximus.
Yeah,
It's a gladiator chariot race game.
And
it was sick to watch.
Okay.
It was sick, dude. It was rad.
So some people really like that, and if you can get so some inside baseball here for those of you who like miniature games but can't get your gaming group to get into Warhammer, get a couple of miniatures for D&D, tell them you're going to play D&D, then pull out the grid with all the miniatures, and now you're playing Warhammer. Or something similar, right?
It's like that at the shop too. People start with D&D miniatures, and then they're like, I could get a combat patrol for Warhammer, and all of a sudden they're playing Warhammer. So,
and they're in debt.
Yes, and they're maxing out 3 credit cards.
They have a lien on their house.
I've
It's all
seen
because
it.
of you, Benjamin.
I've seen it, guys. It was some kid. Probably he was maybe in his early 20s, maybe younger, but he cleared out a Visa gift card, his debit card, and another card all at the same time.
Oof. Okay, don't do that. Well, the gift card's fine. That's what gift cards are for. But anyways, no.
Man, to
I
see
mean,
his debit card and him to be like, you know, I never got a notification from my bank or anything, so I think I'm okay. Like,
Overdrafted by $1,000.
yikes.
It's like, ooh, I hope you don't pay rent or food. I hope you're living at home with mom and dad. Nothing wrong with that. I did it for a long time. So nice.
Yeah. Well,
Do it while
Randy's
you
also
can.
debt free at this point.
Yeah, I have no. I paid off all my college loans.
I can't say that.
Nice.
I don't think
I,
Benjamin can say
I don't
that
have
yet.
I don't have a car loan. I don't have any debt.
very nice.
Yeah. So what's your point, Benjamin? What's your point? That crunch
My
can
point-
be fun?
Yeah, so some people just don't want to play a theater of the mind game. They want to be nerdy with their nerdy friends, but
Yeah.
not so that they can play pretend. Not so they can talk like a goblin and stuff. They just want to play a war game, and it's the only one their friends will play. So pull out the grid and shoot people. There you go.
I want to pretend like I'm a Roman emperor and I'm sending my men into battle and I'm doing the little thing and
Yeah.
I want to pretend like I'm Churchill, smoking cigars and drinking bourbon and or whatever he had. Probably I don't know.
Right.
Scotch probably.
Yeah, cigars and scotch are a pretty classic combo. It's kind of a rebuttal, but kind of not. So the definitiveness of dice rolls, numbers, stats, all of that, to me, it feels like it doesn't leave a lot of room for cinematic action or storytelling. So I played a game in, this was actually in Alpine when I joined the D&D group at Sul Ross State University. I made a character that I really loved. His name was Tiptoe the Prankster, and he was a halfling rogue. And I was always... What I wanted was for him to just be a complete acrobat. I wanted him to be able to, jump, kick off the walls, and slash somebody in the eye. Or jump, kick somebody's dagger out of their hand, and stab in the elbow. I wanted him to be extremely agile, mobile, darting around the battlefield, scoring these sneak attacks. With the grid, that just looks like moving forward 3 spaces, rolling attack, and then moving over 1 more space. And then, even worse, I fail the rolls or whatever, and none of that happens.
So,
I have these ideas of what I can do to make my character cool, to play a cool story, to develop personality during the game, and I feel like the war game doesn't let me tell that story. And my character's fate, I can't do something cool if I roll like crap, or if the DM rolls great and I die unexpectedly. And we've had whole episodes about DM fudging and how, it's, we've come out and said on this podcast that it's okay in some situations and not okay in others. But there are huge coteries of people online who say the dice should never be fudged ever. The dice should never be fudged. Well, if I'm doing the grid combat thing and the dice are never fudged, then my story is at the whim of these little polyhedral dice. And I feel like my story might not be told in the way I want it to if I'm confined to the grid.
So I guess I want to say, even with your mind games that really rely on that, I feel like there's still going to be some level of dice or
there are levels of chance and levels
involved,
and levels of risk for death. Yeah.
Yeah. The second thing I wanted to say was, you were saying that you imagined your character doing all these flips and tricks and, acrobatics.
Yeah.
But then on the board, you just move 3, roll bad, do nothing.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, it's like, yes, the grid is there, and if that's if you don't have an imagination, then maybe like that's what you see is just the grid, and that's what's happening. But I guess I always view that as like a skeleton,
Yeah.
and then like my imagination goes on top of that. Like
Yeah.
I know when I'm looking at it, like maybe it's because like I did a lot of broadcast production stuff. I'm thinking like, oh, I like in my theater of mind, I'm putting my camera here to catch this angle, and I'm thinking very cinematic.
And we can catch the movie that's happening over the grid.
Yeah, exactly. So
the grid is just the blocking on stage.
Exactly. It's all your stage production.
But we can imagine the acting and the lights and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of like, in some situations, pro grid, because then I don't have to keep remembering everything that's going on the battlefield, as well as everything that my character can do. Because I think that's one of the reasons why my mage character did die, is because like, not that it was because it was all theater of mind, but I just straight up forgot some things I could do, and I was like, I could have done that. That would have saved me. I could have done that. That would have saved me. And it's like, maybe if I had a grid there, and I wasn't thinking about, okay, he's here and I'm here and they're over there, and all this, and having to remember like where everyone kind of is, and put all that together just in my head. If I had like a little bit of extra help, so that could have been like on like a back burner.
Sure.
Maybe that would help. That could have saved me. Maybe that'll help someone else. But then they can spend some of that time like listening, but not having to like, not saying they don't have to pay attention, but they don't have to render everything that's going on.
I know exactly what you mean. Like, they have more broadband available. They have more bandwidth, excuse me.
Yeah.
They have more bandwidth available for looking at their characters' options.
Yeah, exactly. I'm compressing in the data, and then whenever I need it, I'll uncompress it, and okay, yeah, everything that's changed. I can see that, and
here goes Randy making decent points. Jerk.
And to think, I never once did a debate in my life.
Yeah, but I do.
Benjamin's like, I was gonna say, Benjamin's like, this is an awful debate. Y'all would both be failed. UIL would be so disappointed. Who brought these kids here?
Agreeing with your opponent. What the? You are not supposed to keep saying, yes, I see your point. Stop saying that.
Benjamin's old students are like, this is awful. Get in the comments. Tell us how bad we were at debating.
Right. Yeah. I do, you know what, though? I do totally see Travis's point on this one, where in the theater of their mind, when you say, I have a range of 20 meters, how do I get there? I do a backflip and flip over them and try to hit them in the back. And they say, okay, roll to see if you hit, right? Well, I just described, the roll is only to see if I hit. I just described how I covered 20 meters, and everyone imagined it with me as I described it, because that's how I described it. There was no other way for them to imagine it. But if I have a piece and I go, then no one saw the flip. I mean, I could go, and my character does this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you still describe it.
Oh, well, of course you describe it, but there's something. It's a lot harder to imagine that something that's not doing something is doing something, right? It's hard for me to look at Travis and say he's running a marathon right now because he's just sitting there. Right?
I can see it. He's got a sweatband on. There's a street behind
Randy,
you.
it would definitely be my warrior band from Japan that we
Yeah!
Yeah.
So, I can see he just ran past a table full of cups of water. Travis, why would you knock down the water cups? How dare you?
Knocked the entire table
So
over.
unsportsmanlike.
Grabbed one for me, knocked the rest
and knocked all the rest down. Oh.
And then threw yours straight on the ground when you were done.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, but y'all are the ones saying that theater of the mind is hard for people with an imagination, and me describing that. Wait a second, I think I just brought up a point that I did not want to make.
Do
Sorry,
it.
keep going, Benjamin. I get to cut this out later.
Yeah, I mean, so I was agreeing with you partially by saying that
Yeah.
I think that having the figure not be able to fully do what your character can do makes it harder to imagine that
Yeah.
that character is doing it because your eyes aren't matching what the words are telling you. Kind of like if you read a book, anything can happen in a book. I can describe the most physics warping thing and you have no choice but to imagine that because that's all that's there. You're reading the words and imagining it in your head. When it's converted to a movie, you have to there's budget constraints and actual physics you have to deal with and magic isn't
The
real.
limits of the actors.
Right. And I can
I'll
only
never
imagine.
forget how they took the book Ender's Game
Yeah,
and the movie Ender's Game, and it's like they
totally
compressed
different.
this entire movie into a 6-month story because they can't age Asa Butterfield up, 6
3
years
years.
or
Yeah.
however long it took.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And but even the battle scenes and stuff, there were like they were cool visually, but there was so much more going on that.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the theater of the mind versus the grid. I think the ultimate thing is the book is better than the movie, right? Like the grid is the movie, and
Yeah.
so it makes it
Yeah.
harder to compete with the book. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's your argument, and I'm making that for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean with that. But like I said, in my head, it's always just been the grid is there so that my book version goes on top.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's round 4. Vote in the comments. Okay. There's one major point which brought this up for the pod. While Benjamin and I were at this con, we were able to talk a lot about Martian Colony, about changes we needed to make from the first session to the next, because the first session brought up lots of things that needed to be adjusted. We found lots of kinks and holes, and we're so thankful to you, Randy, and Derek both. Listener, Randy's character has a Gatling gun that's way too powerful. So, for the cost.
I don't think it's too powerful. I think your other weapons weren't cool enough.
Yeah. So here's the point that was brought up, that we could codify the game and create a grid-based game. We could create a grid-based game, and we keep saying grid, but maybe it's a hexagonal grid, maybe it's a square, it could be anything. But we could make it something that's physical, that's represented by distance on the table. But games with very long distances make grids impractical. Okay?
Yeah.
So if each square represents a mech, so that's a 20 meter square, but weapons have ranges of a kilometer or half a kilometer. If weapons have ranges of 500 meters or 1,000 meters, then I would need that grid to be, what's
At
1,000
least twice
divided
as
by
big.
yeah, the grid's got to be 500 squares long, right? And that's if one miniature is on one side and the target is on the far other side. And if lots of weapons have that range, and Randy, both you and my mechs can move at 480 meters per round. But excuse me, per action. We can cover 940 we can cover a kilometer in 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the grid would need to be the size of a football field.
Yeah.
In order to handle both short range combat with swords and claws and whatever, and long range combat with beam guns and missiles.
Yeah.
It would become impossible to run this combat on a grid. Theater of the Mind becomes a game necessity almost. Now, the other solution to that, and this is what I have seen some other games do, is they just shrink the distances of all of these weapons. And Martian Colony has done that too. Listener, there are modern, and obviously the listener knows this, but I feel the need to say it. Modern missiles and modern bullets, they can fire 10 kilometers. They can fire hundreds of kilometers. So why wouldn't a mech be able to fire a missile from their shoulder that travels 200 kilometers? So in order to fulfill the needs of a tactical war game, we have to shrink the distances. But even so, the distances are even still too big to run it on a practical grid. That came up a lot because we were wondering. Benjamin and I are always dreaming big when we're on these convention trips. Yeah. We're like, yeah, man, let's kickstart Martian Colony. Let's get miniatures. Let's get mats. Let's get, terrain. Let's get models. Whatever. What can we throw into the Kickstarter as these stretch goals, or whatever? And I was kind of on this back foot, like adding a grid as a stretch goal doesn't make any sense in this game. Because all your ranges are too big. We would need to. Your stretch goal becomes a bed sheet. Like,
I mean, Martian Colony bedding.
So
El Dorado logo and a Martian Colony logo just checkered throughout the bed sheet.
I think that currently, technology is what's probably limiting the ability to do that kind of system currently. I think maybe with the rise of augmented reality and VR stuff, you would be able to in the future have something where you're I'm sitting here and I have a HUD, and it's I can't have a mini map basically of the battlefield.
Yeah,
and then also just
where
have
everything's just dots. Where
just dots. Everything's up here.
So then your close range stuff becomes detailed and modeled, and your long range stuff is dots and arrows.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Yeah, so I think in the future it will be something you can do where you are covering several kilometers for something like that, but also maybe in the future you'll have it where you're able to zoom all the way in and see from your character's point of view from inside the mech, and you would have your console there even if you wanted,
All right, so listeners, those are our Kickstart stretch goals to pioneer augmented reality technology purely for the purpose of Martian Colony. Guys, I actually did manage to catch it was a YouTube video of a Yu-Gi-Oh streamer who was invited to Japan to do Oculus Rift Yu-Gi-Oh dueling.
It's cool.
That's cool.
It's pretty cool. So, it was of course scripted, and it had scripted all the models and stuff were scripted. But to be able to read a card and then put the model there, that's pretty neat. Mm-hmm. That technology's not far away. I mean, the Nintendo 3DS had that, where it could read a card and the camera can put the model above.
We're in Japan, and the games we were playing in Japan, we put the cards down and our characters popped up.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
The Dragon Ball and the Gundam games.
Yeah.
I'll say right now at work, I'm working with a an augmented reality headset to try to get that to work for some of my stuff at work.
God, that's awesome.
And then one of the other ones that we're looking at maybe moving to, instead of glasses in front of you or a whole headset, it's a little bitty screen. It's a little drop down thing, almost like from the Mandalorian. And it's a little bitty screen though.
I was really excited for Google Glass a long time ago, and then it just completely fell through.
Yeah, but it's a little bitty just screen, but it's just big enough that it looks. I think it said it looks like a 7-inch tablet from a couple feet away when it's that close to your eye or whatever.
Yeah,
and you can put thermal camera attachments onto this headset, and so when you're looking at the wall, because it's an industrial kind of product, so you can look at the wall and see where all of oh, this pipe is hot, it's live, this one's not being run right now. Dude. You can label them, and then when someone else comes by, they'll see those labels there. It was pretty cool. I was so you have that for your little HUD for your
game table.
Yeah. For your game, okay, I got my mini map here. You know,
you
it's
just
like
you just share the link to your game group. Everybody plugs in, and then you can do it all in VR.
We're getting into some real wargaming
or
now.
AR.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, every
Cool.
day it's getting better.
Someday, and Martian Colony is going to be on the forefront.
Yeah.
Tell us one more thing down in the comments down below. Tell us what kind of stretch goals you would want for a Martian Colony role-playing game.
Yeah, for real.
If you want augmented reality glasses, we'll do it for you.
$7 million.
That's our that's
to
our
develop the glass.
yeah.
$15 million.
Another
No
thing,
promises.
Another thing that also came up when we were talking about Theater of the Mind versus Grid is that when you're talking about mechs and large-scale warfare, like, the story of Gundam, it has always been character-driven. That's something we love about Gundam, that it focuses on the individual. And yet, simultaneously, we see these, global or continent-wide theaters of battle.
Yeah.
So you would need to be able to handle simultaneously what one character is doing in their own space versus what large platoons of enemies are doing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in the Theater of the Mind, this is something easy. You get a report on your computer that says your friendly front line has fallen. Like, that's easy to do. But if I'm working on a grid and I've got my miniatures, then I need to reach across the table and sweep 6 miniatures off. And it like, to me, it just felt like a cluttered experience.
Yeah.
To conceptualize. I'm theater of the minding all of what the grid would look like, but there's and maybe this is there's no way. It's not a Martian colony specific problem.
No.
You can be having kingdom wide battles in D&D and wondering how you're going to conceptualize it on the board. Do you have a risk map or a fantasy map out on the board where you're talking about battle lines and you're playing Dune War for Arrakis at the same time you're playing D&D? Like, how's it going to work? How are those two systems going to mesh? And again, I feel like I'm switching games whenever I do that. Whenever I go through that. Yeah. And for me, it's jarring. It's confusing when I do. Anyway, those were some things that came up.
I thought I was going to ask something real quick. Sometimes, though, Theater of the Mind can be just as confusing for large-scale events. We did the game, I think you were running it, Travis, where there was like a big castle siege of some kind, and there was like gates were getting busted down.
I think it was Derek's.
Was Derek running that one?
I think so.
Okay.
Always great when he's not here for these, and we specifically bring up the things he's done.
Yeah. Anyway,
I do think that was him, because I remember our characters trying to escape onto like the boats near the reservoir or near the channels or something.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell for you? It's fine.
We only played like one or two sessions of that game, I think. But anyway, it was just, for me, it was tough to kind of think of like, okay, where do I need to go now? Like, I don't know the layout of the castle, and it's not here in front of me. It's like, what do I see? I guess that's the thing, is constantly having to ask, what do I see?
Can be infuriating or frustrating for people.
Yeah,
Yep, I think that's totally legitimate too. The last thing the judge wants to hear in CX debate, hear your debater saying, I think that's a totally legitimate viewpoint.
Right, yeah.
You're wrong, but it's a viewpoint.
I always told my students writing persuasively, I was like, pick a side. Damn, please pick a side.
Yeah.
But this isn't a real debate. This is a podcast for content. And we're going to put debate in the title to make it inflammatory. So
realistic.
So my side is right that Theater of the Mind is absolutely superior, because the mind is capable of conjuring up any spectrum of battles. while the grid has all of these terrible limitations. So, audience, thank you guys so much for listening, and to the stunning and obvious conclusion that the theater of the mind is radically superior. Thank you so much. Our Patreon is...
Just cut me off. I like how you just said, screw 4% of the population who cannot view anything in their mind. Martian Colony is... Yeah, Martian Colony is not for 4%, so, you're disablest. I don't know what the word is. You're an ist.
Oh, no!
That's right.
Go play Warhammer, y'all. If you have aphantasia, God, just...
No.
Good luck.
Martian Colony is for you too. Yes. If you want to contact us, it's mythicalmeta@gmail.com. Join our Patreon at www.patreon.com. And if you please like, subscribe, and all the other things that you can do to help us. And please, thank you, Randy and Travis, for being my good friends. And thank you, listener, for listening to our podcast. Adios.
Later.
This ending was a train wreck. Okay, bye, everybody. This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.